Yo, what is good, YouTube? It's your boy Leach, back here with another reaction video. Make sure y'all hit that sub button, turn them noties on, and make sure y'all follow the socials on the screen to be much appreciated. I give thanks to the man above for another day. God bless. I love y'all, man. And yeah, let's get right into it. One reason each NFL playoff team won't win the Super Bowl. Sounds like fun. We did a part 1 to this on why they will win the Super Bowl, so make sure y'all go check that out. Leave a comment, leave a like. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. It'd be much appreciated. Let's get into it.
Going to the Super Bowl. Who could potentially make it there? Taking a look at the playoff picture when it comes to the AFC. We have mentioned so many times this is the most teams we've had coming from an 11-loss season, making it to the postseason. You see a team like the Patriots as a 2 seed, the Jags as a 3 seed.
There's no other way
and then
around
over
it.
Haley
Like,
in the NFC.
Yeah, some surprises over on this side too. A lot of rematches when it comes to the upcoming schedule in the NFC. We get round 3 of Bears-Packers. The Seattle Seahawks, your #1 overall seed, they get to bye, and then we also get a rematch between the Rams and the Eagles, or excuse me, between the Rams.
Let me know in the comment section down below if your team's in the playoffs.
And the Eagles squaring off as well.
It is going to be very interesting. We are 4 wide today. Amanda Guerra, Haley Sutton, Leach Duzable, Danny Cannell. We're going to talk about teams and why they may not win the Super Bowl. Before I get into it, I've had this question over the weekend with our guys. Is the AFC or the NFC more wide open?
That's actually a really good question. I would say the AFC is a little
okay. See, that's what I said, but I got pushed back.
The parity in the AFC is ridiculous. Seattle, people will say Seattle and the Rams, that could go either way, but I think it's a little bit stronger at the top for the NFC side than the AFC side.
I agree. I think the NFC is pretty deep with some Super Bowl contenders. I think you have to start talking to yourself in some of the AFC teams that do have some deficiencies. So I think the AFC is more wide open.
Okay, I agree with you, so I appreciate that. And I'm going to tell my other friends that they're losers. Yeah, exactly. So let's start with the teams. Let's start with the top team, the Seahawks. Get the 1 seed here. You know, up until a couple weeks ago, you asked teams, why is this team not going to do well? So many people would have said Sam Darnold. I think he's proven himself. Here's a stat from our research department.
I don't know. I don't think the Seahawks are going to win the Super Bowl. I just don't see it happening. I mean, I have them going. I'm pretty sure in my prediction video I had them going to the NFC Championship
in the
game.
NFL. That's not good. You can't win on that.
I just don't trust Sam Darnold. Like I said about the Jaguars, I don't trust Trevor Lawrence.
It would probably be the only reason they don't go to the Super Bowl because their defense is so elite, DK. And when you look at it, Sam Darnold, you talked about all the turnovers he has. 10 of his 14 interceptions, DK, have come against playoff caliber teams. Teams that you're going to see in the playoffs, that's when he turns the football over. So he has to take care of the football. People have always said, when is that shoe going to drop for him? Well, the last couple of weeks he's had some game-winning drives. Panthers game, he had the game, did a really good job there, but turned the ball over in that game as well. But when you look at it, that Rams game, being able to come back, right, after struggling in the first half, I think that goes a long way.
Bro, my Bengals had 24
if the Seahawks were not able to win, Amanda, it would be because of the turnovers.
One of those touchdowns was a special teams touchdown, though, in that comeback
and
that
the Seahawks
they had
got
against the Rams. So I think it clearly is if they turn the ball
most
over.
Interceptions this season. Darnold's throwing 14.
We break down the NFL all the time. A lot of it is very simple. It's taking care of the football. When you've got a quarterback who's
that's exactly why I don't trust these guys. Look, Lawrence on that list, Darnold's on that list, Herbert's on that list, like
all the time. A lot of it is very simple. It's taking care of the football. When you've got a quarterback who's 3rd in the NFL in interceptions with 14 of those, then I do think it becomes an issue. And I do think Sam Darnold gets incredibly disrespected. And it is because the brand of Sam Darnold has been so polarizing. It's been up, it's been down, it's been a little bit shaky at times. The good news is for Sam Darnold, he can silence every critic that he's got out there, including myself, who are a little bit questionable on Sam Darnold as a Super Bowl champion. He can prove us all wrong.
This will be a big test for defense wins championships. I think this year, too, we've seen a lot of defenses really excel to the top. We're talking defense when it comes to the Chicago Bears. I mentioned we get the round 3 between the Bears and the Packers. Our research team telling us that they have the 4th worst total defense in the NFL. They're giving up just over 360 yards. I went back and looked at that Bears-Packers game as well, too. In that most recent meeting, they gave up 337 total yards. So, Lige, could be a reason why.
For sure. And when
that defense,
that offense had its way with the Bears defense. Now, they are one of the most opportunistic defenses. They're one of those defenses that give up a ton of yards, but they turn you over.
I thought y'all was talking Caleb Williams.
Right, when you can constantly give up yards and put so much pressure on the offense to keep up with the opposing offense. So
we'll see if their defense
would be the reason. That and lack of pass rush. They struggle getting after the quarterback.
If they do that, their
need to
defense
get rectified if they're going to make a run to a
way
Super Bowl
different than how they did in the regular season.
Haley, you mentioned it. Defense wins championships, and I think that acronym or that saying has been proven wrong at times when you've seen offensive forward teams win a Super Bowl. The Chiefs were built on offense with Patrick Mahomes and company, but you can't be this bad on defense. You have to have like a middle of the road defense, and with them being as poor as they are, and this is the least surprising thing. Would they bring in Ben Johnson for to fix Caleb Williams? Would they address in the offseason as far as roster moves to help the offense? They'll take some time. I would expect the Bears next year to take a big step forward as far as Super Bowl contender when they start addressing that side of the roster.
If you're a Bears fan, you just have to be happy about being in this position, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, you just got to be happy you made the playoffs.
Well, my thing is, I go back to what Dan Campbell said a few years ago.
I mean, that first round matchup, Green Bay, Chicago, it's legit a toss. Like,
it's hard to get here. So, like, when you're here, you got to take advantage of it. Now, rightfully so, they're probably a year ahead of schedule, and there's no consolation prize as a player, but you just don't know how things are going to pan out. You never know if you're going to be in this position to be the number 2 seed in the NFC again.
Let's stick with the NFC. By the way, the Bears playing the Packers on Saturday, the Eagles and 49ers on Sunday. We're starting with the Eagles in this position. I don't think this is going to surprise anyone. Highest 3-and-out percentage in the NFL.
Yeah, Eagles offense
has to get going, Leach.
For sure, and it comes down to Kevin Patula and also Jalen Hurts being on the same page and figuring out what this team does well, right? And I think part of the issue is they've had offensive line injuries.
Jalen Hurts,
and last year, that was their staple. They can lean on the offensive line. Saquon Barkley literally didn't get touched till he was at the second level a lot last year, and that's why he led the NFL in rushing. Well, they've been a shell of what they've been in the run game, and there's no rhythm to this offense. I was talking with Pete the other day, and I was like, when you turn on the tape, DK, it's like they just run plays. Right? They don't coincide with the down and distance. There's no rhythm. There's no setting anything up. And they got to figure that out. The defense is going to be there. The defense is going to keep them in games. But
crazy
if you
what a
want
year
to
can
be
do to a
back-to-back Super
team.
Bowl champs, you got to get things going on the offensive side.
Totally agree.
Jalen Hurts' playoff career at home, he's 5-0.
Because they've been through a lot of offensive coordinators, and they've been able to swing it out of the park, and a lot of that does
I don't know. The
have
playoffs
to do with continuity. You're able to keep things. The injuries
a
on
lot
the
of these
offensive line
teams,
have been an issue. Lane Johnson back at practice today is big for the Eagles. I think it all goes by Saquon. That's what you've just got to feed your stud there as much as you can. But the Eagles' offense has been, a point of contention all season long, and yet here they are with an opportunity in the postseason.
You don't know what
with
you're getting,
one of the most clutch players in the postseason, and Jalen Hurts. As long as you get Saquon going, but their offense definitely has been way too inconsistent all year.
Yeah, the stat we've been talking about all week long, Jalen Hurts hasn't completed a pass in over a game and a half, or I guess a game and a half is a better way to say that. So got to get that offense going. Let's go over to the Panthers, guys. I feel like this stat could really go
Panthers
here. But our research team providing us with the third worst points differential by a division winner. We know that the Panthers' shot to win the Super Bowl is very long, Danny, but this is probably, I'd say, one of the reasons why?
Yeah, the offense has struggled mightily, and Dave Canales has done a good job. I think you've seen like a step forwed from Bryce Young in this offense. I don't think there are some key pieces.
I mean, they're a solid team, bro, but they got to take on Matthew Stafford and the Rams. Like, they just ain't messing
into the
with the
playoffs and barely got in, won the worst division in the NFL. I think you feel kind of better about the franchise.
I mean, at least they made it, though.
And being able to lay a foundation, but they just don't have the pieces on the offensive side of the ball. I have concerns about Bryce Young.
You're going against that Rams
but he's going to make it a really tough decision.
You're going against that secondary.
What to do with his rookie contract?
Yeah,
I don't think it's been a slam dunk.
Bryce Young, he's going to be in for
the guy for the future. And maybe he can change that with a strong performance in the playoffs and potentially a huge upset in round one. But I think the offense has way too many issues.
I mean, it speaks to who the Panthers have been all year long.
In round one, I think the offense has way too many issues.
Wow.
I mean, it speaks to who the Panthers have been all year long, right? You see a third worst point differential. They're inconsistent. Like, there's games where Bryce looks.
That's the thing. If you're inconsistent in the playoffs, you're
100 yards, right?
Game,
and that's why the
you got to execute
what it's been.
every game if you want to go to the Super Bowl. You got to execute.
They either get blown out or they
both sides,
close
special
games.
teams.
To DK's point, though, if you're the Panthers, you have to love the trajectory here and where you're going, right? You were kind of
Carolina's on the up,
of the NFL for the last couple of years.
Panthers fans should feel really
in
good
the top five, and now you're a team that won the division. The arrow's going up. We've seen the maturation of Bryce Young, but until they're consistent, it's going to be tough for them to win a playoff game.
Good thing for them, they are going to be at home hosting the Rams. But Danny, as you mentioned, it would be a massive upset. The Rams are favored by 10.5 in this game.
I just don't see it happening. Matthew
What could be the
Stafford's
downfall of the Rams? Rams, there's a reason Sean McVay fired his special teams coordinator in the middle of the season. We don't see it a lot. They're second worst in the league when it comes to special teams EPA. How much is the special teams worry you still, Danny?
This makes me feel so good about my Super Bowl pick. Like special teams, I know it's all three phases of the game, but there have been some pretty glaring issues for most of these teams. The fact that we're talking about special teams, I'm surprised there wasn't a defensive stat that might have come to the forefront because their defense does concern me somewhat. But with Matthew Stafford and MVP type season,
really
getting Devontae Adams back, seeing what he can do with Puka Nacua on the outside, they've got weapons. They've got one of the best coaches. Yeah, I guess if it comes down and you're starting to split hairs, the special teams hasn't been great, but that makes me feel even better about my Super Bowl pick.
Yeah, they've gone through a few kickers, but I'm going to hit on the point you talked about, defense. When you look at it, over their last 6 games, they've given up 31, 17, 34, 27, 20. That means Matt Stafford has to go out there and put up at least 30 for them to win, and that's a real concern. Now, they have the offensive firepower to do it, but remember, DK, when they made that one to the divisional last year,
hey y'all, don't get on my ass in the comment section.
They haven't been doing that this year, so they really need to step it up on the defense side. You see it right there. Weeks 1 through 12, what the defense was.
Really haven't been watching sports like that, but I noticed Rams defense is pretty solid, bro. It's not that bad, is it? I don't know. I thought it was pretty good. No.
Caliber games if your defense
what they're saying, bro, over these last couple
weeks,
they've
been
getting up like 30.
Too, I think round of applause for them just being in this conversation based on the hands they've been dealt this year. That defense, I think, has survived, but that is about it.
Sacks
right?
in
So
NFL
red flag
with 20
that we're
this
looking
season.
at here. Fewest sacks per game.
My Bengals have more sacks in
NFL history, Danny. Like not just this year, but in all of NFL history.
I honestly think Kyle Shanahan should get more consideration for Coach of the Year.
I've been saying that. I've been preaching it.
This without so many of those key pieces with a defense that has struggled so much. Think about some of the all-time, Super Bowl performances when Patrick Mahomes was beat by Tom Brady. Remember what Mahomes was doing? He was running for his life the whole game.
Yeah, just like the Eagles
last year that can impact the opposing quarterback, or else with the level of play, especially when it gets down to the Super Bowl, NFC Conference Championship game, you're going to be going against a quarterback. Possibly a Matthew Stafford, who can tear you apart if he just sits back there.
Wow, the Ravens are up there too for fewest
sacks. So that to me is a glaring issue of why the 49ers would not be able to win.
Yeah, that in defense, period. And it's weird to say that because when San Fran was making their runs to all these conference championships, it was led by the defensive line, but when you don't have Nick Bosa, right, when you don't have Fred Warner, like a lot of that.
Yeah, it's going to be hard for the 49ers to definitely make a Super Bowl run and win.
For Coach of the Year just because of all the injuries that has endured. We're just talking about the defensive guys. Talking about the guys that they've missed on offense, right? Brock Purdy missed a lot of games. George Kittle missed a lot of games. There's been influx at the receiver position. So to have them in this position, where even in week 18, they were fighting for the #1 seed, shows you how good Kyle Shanahan is as a coach.
Yeah,
but
Kyle
if you continue
Shanahan's
to not be able to rush the passer and give up that many yardage and that much points, it's going to be tough for you in the playoffs.
Well, and here's the thing for the 49ers, you can't lose any more players. Like, you got to stay healthy. That's it.
The fact that they're in the playoffs, though, with how many injuries they've had this season,
and this is no surprise, I think, given no Micah Parsons, NFL low, 3 sacks in the final 4 games of the season here. How much does it worry you not having him?
It worries you a lot. Jeff Hafley's a really good defensive coordinator.
I just think they don't got Micah Parsons.
Think about Micah Parsons. He's that chess piece you can move around. I think that's what they're missing the most these last couple of weeks. I mean, a caveat to that, too, when you look at what they've done over the last 2 weeks, they've kind of been solidified in that 7th seed. So Jordan Love hasn't played, right? So, like, yes, they're on a 4-game losing streak, but a lot of their frontline guys haven't played in almost 2 weeks. So you have to take that into consideration. I will say this, the injury bug to me is the biggest concern, right? Zach Tom looks like he could potentially come back. That would be massive for them at right tackle. It looks like Josh Jacobs with 2 weeks potentially off will be a lot healthier. That will be big for them, especially because we talked about that Bears defense struggling, more specifically against the run. I think Josh Jacobs could really add to that.
Yeah,
also getting Jordan Love back after a couple of weeks, he'll be a lot healthier. I think the injury bug is the biggest concern for the Packers.
I do think this is one of those significant injuries, though, that either helps you get to the Super Bowl or prevents you from getting there. Like we were talking about the 49ers, it's several guys. It was Warner, Bosa. This is one player that can make that type of impact, especially when you're in the postseason. There are no load management. You don't take plays off. Everybody's on all the time. And if Micah Parsons on all the time, he could make those type of impactful plays. Without him, I just think there's a little bit too little too late.
Breaking down one reason why each team in the playoffs
these are valid reasons,
the postseason. We're talking our research teams. That was the NFC. So let's go.
But I did not know the Rams defense was over here giving
up 30 points and get your take on these Broncos because, man, I feel like you have been all over this team in support of that defense and how good that they have been.
Broncos.
like they tapered off just a little bit at the end of the season. Some injuries impacting there.
I'm not worried about the Broncos. I don't think the Broncos have a weak
takeaways. Actually, tied with the Packers for this statistic here. Does that concern you at this point?
I don't think it concerns me because they're so dominant that they get off the field on third down.
I don't really care what they got to say about the
Broncos. So they don't get to throw the football. I mean, they lead the league in sacks with 68. And when you talk about sack differential, they're plus 45 in sack differential. To me, the biggest concern is
Denver can get after your quarterback.
It has been a struggle the last couple of weeks. When you get into the red zone, you have to finish with touchdowns.
They got Bo Nix on offense.
Especially in playoff games. If you settle for 3, that's a win for the opposing team. And they have really struggled in the red zone. So for me, the Denver Broncos, that's the biggest concern. Sean Payton and Bo Nix, they have to figure that out if they're going to make it Super Bowl.
I'm surprised that this is a defensive stat because that offense is what concerns me for this Broncos. With that defense has been spectacular. Sure, Bo Nix has 7 game-winning drives, which is awesome, but a lot of that is because he sputtered for 3 quarters, and they're a little bit too much dink and dunk for me. Not enough big play potential. That puts a lot of pressure on your offense to execute the length of the field for long drives. So the reason for me would not be the defense; it would be the offense.
They definitely
they're the 1 seed, so they get the bye. Let's go to the Patriots as the 2 seed here. This stat, I feel like when you had the Rams, maybe this doesn't worry me as much. 7th worst in the league when it comes to sack differential. I mean, if we're talking about 7.
I don't know. New England defense.
So, Danny, your reaction to that, but also the inexperience of
Drake May. I think it's like a step below.
Where does that stand for you as well?
Denver, they definitely got a top 5 defense.
About him because I've seen him play. He really hasn't had a game where you're like, there it looks like the young player.
I don't know. I'm not really worried about the Patriots. I'm just worried about how young they are.
It is different. This is how you're judged against the greatest of all time.
I feel like they're too young.
The intensity level ramps up. What teams do, what they throw at you ramps up. You're going to see new looks.
I don't know.
So it is that question mark, Amanda. Even though he's been so good during the regular season, what do we talk when we judge Lamar Jackson? What has he done in the postseason? That was that way for every great quarterback. Justin Herbert, Trevor Lawrence. Like we can go down the whole list. All-time greats. You never know how they're going to perform. And then if you don't get it done, that pressure starts to mount. So Drake May's got a little naivete because he hasn't experienced that yet. But if they get bounced early, it'll start coming. But he's been so close to flawless all season. I don't have that many concerns about him.
Yeah, to that point, he's been cool, calm, collective in the pocket. Doesn't get flustered. I will say, you go back and watch that second half versus the Bills. They did some things that give you pause in this game because Jesse Minter's a really good defensive coordinator. You talk about the sack differential. I know we'll talk about that again with the Chargers because they've been bad protecting Justin Herbert. But that is a concern, right? Because again, Jesse Minter will mix some things up. And if you're not able to protect your young quarterback, he is a young guy. He's still only in his second year. He could get flustered, so that is a concern for the Patriots.
I know we're short on time. I do have one quick follow-up, and maybe Danny is the quarterback here. When you guys were in the league, someone like Drake May, who's proven that he can handle difficult situations.
We'll see what Drake May's
got. Is there a time, though, where you felt completely overwhelmed? And how did you
every game I started in the NFL, if you really want to know. I mean, I had one playoff start. We won the division with the Giants in '97. I had one playoff start, and I didn't feel overwhelmed at the time. You do prep extra, but it is like I remember my coach called me in, my quarterback coach called me, and he's like, "This is different." He's like, "It's just a different level in the playoffs." And out there on the field, you start realizing all of a sudden we blew a 19-3 lead, but we were planning on going to play the Packers next in Lambeau. Those like the mental aspect of it too. And then all of a sudden when they start closing the gap, it's like our season could be done. It just hits you like a ton of bricks. It's a different atmosphere playing in the postseason.
Yeah, that kind of makes Drake May's performance. I mean, no shade, Danny, obviously, but just the cool, calm, and collectiveness of it all. It really sort of stands out that way too. Let's talk about one of the hottest teams in the AFC, the Jacksonville Jaguars. Duval, get out of here, bro. Finally settling in, Liam Cohen.
I don't even care what they say about the Jags.
But the laundry, Danny, the 4th most penalized team, and when you get into crunch time in the postseason, those penalties can add up.
That's definitely a big play, one. Every turnover, every mistake, it starts
I don't
to
trust
be
the Jags,
amplified
like I told you,
because there's just not that margin of error that you normally.
I don't really
have.
gotta say much about the Jags.
That to me, the discipline will be an issue. I think the Jags are one of those teams. I've got them losing in round 1, but I wouldn't be surprised at all if they did advance past the Bills. But like the reason I'm curious because you want to peak at the right time, coming in with the hot hand, 7 games in a row.
But they got to play that boy Josh Allen, bro.
But absolutely, you've got to dial it in and be more disciplined, especially now where the margins of error are that much tighter.
The interesting thing is they've been able to overcome some of those penalties on offense and still put drives together and score at the end of it. And Trevor Lawrence has played out of his mind. It is a concerning thing because DK's point, in the playoffs, everything gets amplified, right? Games, you're not going to blow everybody out, more specifically in the playoffs. So games are going to come down down to the wire. And usually the team
I feel like that
can
Jags
take care of the
Bills game's
football
gonna
and
be
is least
closer than what people
penalized.
think,
It gives them an
for
upper
sure.
leg in winning the game. I'm not overly concerned with it because, like I said, they've been able to overcome a lot of these penalties, more specifically on the offensive side.
All right, let's keep going here. We have the Steelers. The research red flag is fourth worst pass defense in the NFL. I'd be more worried about them going up against the Texans defense maybe. But what do you think about fourth worst pass defense?
They've been bad.
Every
They deal
single
with so many explosive plays. There's coverage busts in the back end, and you worry about that now. CJ Stroud.
I have the Texans beating the Steelers, but I haven't been in a competitive
the Chargers
game.
a couple weeks
This is
ago.
Pittsburgh
Really
Monday
pushed the
Night
ball down the
Football.
field, which isn't indicative to a lot of success for this Chargers defense that has really struggled.
And the Steelers are the highest
so to me,
paid
that is
defense
the
in
biggest
the league,
concern,
bro.
right? The pass defense for this team. They are getting up there in age. When you look at some of these guys on the defensive side of the ball, that's another concern for me. Can they get up in a week where they have so much emotion last week versus the Ravens? Can those older guys get up for another week in this challenge versus the Texans?
I'd say the one thing is you don't have to face
Texans,
Mahomes in the AFC. You don't have to face Burrow. You don't have to face Lamar Jackson. So you are going against a lot of younger quarterbacks. But still, if you're not able to come through in the pass protection, pass defense, you could still get shredded by any one of those guys.
Especially
you mentioned the Texans and that defense. The defense is not the problem. We've seen the defense come to life. It's maybe that offense that has struggled a little bit here. And when we look at the research, third worst red zone touchdown percentage in the NFL, just 46%, Danny, have come up.
Now, this is one I can relate to because I mentioned the time I was on the Giants. We had an incredible defense. And I remember Jim Foster was kind of having these conversations with me like, don't try to do too much. So a lot of times you get in the red zone, hey, throw it away on third down. A field goal is okay. So you lose some of that aggressive mentality because you're coached that way. And I think that's clearly what you've seen from CJ Stroud as being more of a game manager, but I'm sure that's what he's being asked to do.
They got
to that point, right? A lot of their touchdowns have been explosive touchdowns. They've struggled in the red zone. And it's because when you have a defense that can lead you, 3 points is a win sometimes, right?
Yeah,
and this defense can carry them to a championship. So, yes, in the playoffs, you would like to see that number significantly higher. You want to finish in the red zone with touchdowns because, again, it's going to be a tight-knit game. It's going to come down to the wire. You want to finish with touchdowns instead of field goal attempts.
Moving down our list, we have the Bills, third most rushing yards allowed in the NFL. I feel like throwing up my papers with this. It's the Bills' defense. We're worried about their defense.
To me, it's that, and obviously them being able to get after the passer. They're playing Trevor Lawrence in the first game in the wild card. If you give him that much time, he will shred you apart. You talked about they're on an 8 or 9 game win streak right now, and in zone coverage, which the Bills like to play a lot, he will shred you apart if you cannot affect him. So the run defense for sure, but then also getting after the passer is a concern for them.
So worried about the Bills' rush defense.
But the one thing I might have changed it if they had to face the Ravens, Derrick Henry, Lamar Jackson, which that rush defense I think would have been like Swiss cheese. They would have gone through them. I don't think they have quite the gauntlet to go through as far as rushing attacks.
Yeah,
but the defense
I don't know. I think it'll be fine against Jacksonville.
This last one, we're talking Chargers here. No surprise. Involving Justin Herbert. It's a franchise where 60 sacks allowed. There's not much more Justin Herbert can do. He's out here playing with a club on his hand. He's playing with second and third string offensive linemen. How concerned are you?
My one reason for the Chargers would be Justin Herbert.
I think 60 times this year, and you talked about it. He's playing with a club on his left hand, and every game he finds a way to elevate his team and come away with a victory. But in the playoffs, it's tough to do consistently, week in and week out, especially when you're going against the New England Patriots defense that's really good.
That could be a nightmare for Herbert. He might get sacked maybe 8 or 9 times.
Most sacks allowed this season. They're second in the NFL, and they're only behind the Raiders, who are picking number 1 in the draft for a reason.
It's crazy that he's been pressured that much and still have this team. Normally, you would see that team maybe in the mix for a first-round draft, top number 1 overall pick in the draft. The fact that they're in this postseason, I think, speaks volumes to Justin Herbert, his ability to overcome that adversity, play through some pain, and still to the team around them find ways to win game with that poor protection.
Danny Kanell, DJ Deuceable, we appreciate it. I think what's crazy is on the other side of this, with the exception of a couple teams, we can see so many of them actually.
But that's going to do it for this video. One reason each NFL playoff team will not win the Super Bowl. Let me know in the comment section down below. What do y'all think about this? Are these valid, opinions of what they're saying about each team? I think they were pretty valid. I had my takes, but I think they pretty much nailed all of them. But yeah, like I said, it's going to be a fun playoff. Make sure you all check out my prediction video. It is posted. It'd be much appreciated. Subscribe, leave a comment, like the video, and yeah. But yeah, make sure y'all follow the socials on the screen. Be much appreciated. I love y'all and about. Peace.